Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, the go-to podcast for those flipping the script and taking the unexpected path. I'm your host, Jessica Bergio, holistic life and business coach, author, speaker, and self-proclaimed high-energy hype girl. Each week, I'm bringing you inside. No gatekeeping here. I'll touch on proven holistic business strategies, powerful mindset shifts that have led my clients through massive transformations, and no BS conversation with industry leaders designed to help you get out of your own way to actively pursue a life of purpose. If you're ready to ditch the limitations at the door, hit follow and get ready to be activated to step boldly towards your big goals. Now let's dive in. Welcome back to Unscripted, the podcast. Today's episode was a to-the-point type of episode. My girl Jackie Koch came on. She has over 15 years experience hiring teams and leading human resources for Fortune 500 companies, startups, and small businesses. She has an MBA from Concordia University, but learned the most in the trenches scaling businesses over the last 8 years, working within startups in Los Angeles. Being an entrepreneur at heart, she launched People Principles, which we talked a ton about on this podcast episode, in 2020, where she helps founders scale and lead their teams with HR and recruiting services. She's one of those people who has spoken at a variety of different events that I've been at. She teaches a variety of stages of growth, teaching you how to hire, how to be a good boss, following compliance and legal. And also when you're growing a company, the things you need to look out for and ways to make sure you don't fuck shit up in the beginning. Jackie's someone I've known for many years through the fitness industry back in the day, and then watching her growth through working for these startups. When she opened People Principles about 4 years ago with her partner, the way she's really changing the landscape on people, diving into entrepreneurship, but focusing on being a good boss, right? Learning management skills, learning leadership skills. Her podcast is one of those that I love to tune into for specific nuggets of information in my business. And I know going to Jackie is going to make sure I get the right information because she is someone who does her due diligence. You guys are going to love this episode, especially if you're in your becoming a boss era, not just pretending like you're the boss and hiring out all the things you don't really want to be doing. So I hope you love this episode. If you haven't yet subscribed to my text community, you got to do that. Where have you been? Just text the word Friday to 619-332-3045. And I just drop these little episodes right in your text box. Once a week, we send you out the 2 episodes that we launch. One is always with a guest on Tuesdays, and then Fuck Yeah Friday solo episodes come through on Fridays. And those are meant to just inspire you into action and help build your confidence around stepping into the highest version of yourself. And if you also have been hiding under a rock and you haven't heard about our upcoming retreat, the Unscripted Live Retreat is coming to Scottsdale June 6th. We are running a 1-day fully holistic mastermind type event. It is a retreat style day where you will be poured into. There'll be amazing food, nourishing conversations, a lot of tangible takeaways, time to mastermind on your business and talk about life. We'll have a chef inspired dinner and plenty of time to connect and chill the fuck out, because I know a lot of us run at 100 miles an hour. Chaos is our norm and we're always busy. So if your first excuse is, oh my God, I can't get away, I'm so busy, just pause for a second, shoot me a DM, let's have a chat about it. This is something I help my clients work through all the time. And I know that if you want something bad enough, you can create the time for it, you can find the funds for it, and you can get yourself in the room. So if you got any questions, scroll down, click the link for the retreat, check it out, or you can always DM me, and be sure to sign up for the text community so you and I can stay in touch. All right, hope you guys love this episode with Jackie. Welcome back to Unscripted, the podcast. I have a guest today that I love dearly. She and I have known each other for over 10 years now at this point. I think we got introduced to one another at the very first Strong Fitness Camp in LA. I don't know, what was that, 10, 11 years ago? I don't even know. Back when Lori and I both had brown hair, I know that. Jackie is one of those people that you can't help but be like drawn into her energy. She has this like calm knowingness about her that just makes you feel safe. She's probably, what are you talking about, Jess? She's been in the corporate world for so long. Maybe she doesn't have that effect on everybody because she is a boss. I would imagine that some people are probably really intimidated by you and maybe started out conversations with you. I didn't think you liked me, but you're actually really nice, because what I get, I think we're similar like that. But Jackie is someone I have known just over the years and watched grow from being in corporate to now running her own business, stepping into entrepreneurship fully, finally, and launching her podcast and just helping so many people in the business world. I want to ask her all sorts of questions about the pivot, all sorts of questions about how to lead in business and what entrepreneurship looks like for her. So we're going to get into the juice of all of the good stuff now. Jackie girl, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to dig in. And yeah, we've known each other a really long time. It's pretty wild how fast time goes, but how slow it goes at the same time.
Seriously, I know. Look at us. We haven't aged a bit.
No, Botox helps.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, let's just jump right in. You have a podcast too, which I know the listeners are listening to podcasts, but then they've also maybe been curious about starting a podcast. Your journey with your podcast has been similar to mine with the name changes and the evolution of what you started out wanting to talk about and what you're talking about now. So introduce us to this new iteration of your podcast and tell us who it's for.
I have a podcast called World's Greatest Boss, and it is all about helping business owners navigate being a leader, the challenges that come with that, navigating hiring and building a team, and also like staying in compliance and following all the rules. Because when you have a team, there's rules you have to follow, right? It's not the wild, wild west. I just try to give really tactical advice because I feel like what happens is, especially if you're building a business, a lot of people go to like business entrepreneurship events and you hear from stage how important it is to have a really high performing team, but then you never really know what that means or how to do it. And I really try to like break some of that down on the show. So I have a recruiting and HR consulting business, and I pivoted from working in-house to launching my own business about 4 years ago. And the podcast came to be because I was really thinking, okay, I need to create marketing content. I'm not going to blog. I don't want to be making Instagram reels. What can I do that I actually would like? I recruit for a living, so I talk to people for a living. So I'm like, a podcast would be really great. Like I could sit down and bullshit my way through anything with anyone. And so it first started with a podcast specifically devoted to hiring, and it was called Hiring School. After I did a few episodes, I was like, okay, there's so much more than just hiring when you're building a team. And so I wanted to really branch out into other topics. And so I was trying to think of a new podcast name, and I came up with, oh shit, I'm the boss now, because I think that's a thought that you have when you're building a boss or you have to deal with something for the first time. And so we pivoted to that. And then most recently, I rebranded it again because I found it was hard to find. I think because there's a swear word in it. It's also like doesn't pop up. It just wasn't getting, I think, as much traction as it could because of the name. And so that's why I changed the name. But I think if you are listening to the show and you're like, I want to launch a podcast, just do it. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. Just try and iterate as you go. And I think people hesitate to do something different or launch something new because they think everything has to be perfect. And quite honestly, I wish I wouldn't have spent $4,000 on hiringschool.com or a few other things that I bought thinking the podcast was going to stick. I wish I would have just done it for a while before I made some investments. But hey, what happened?
Oh my gosh. We know plenty of people who have spent an exorbitant amount of money on names that they no longer use and have waited till what felt like the perfect time to start something. And I know you waited quite a while before you stepped out onto your own too. Are you happy you've made the choice to step into entrepreneurship and do your own thing now? I can't believe it's been 4 years already.
I totally am. This is my second stint in entrepreneurship. So my first stint was 12 years ago when I was doing some personal training and things like that. That wasn't for me. And so I went back to, I'm going to say corporate, although I don't think it's necessarily corporate. I started working in startups in LA, and that still had like an entrepreneurship bug, like gave me some of that feeling of being my own boss. But stepping out onto my own has been great and terrible all at the same time. I think if you're not going to work on personal development, you should never be an entrepreneur, because managing my emotions, I think, is my main job responsibility.
Yep. Yep.
All day long.
All day long. And that's why our dear friend Lori, when she talks about that in real time, I'm always like, she keeps it fucking real, because in one given day, you could have like the best day of your life and the worst day in the same hour, maybe even.
It is so up and down. But I also think for me, and maybe listeners to the show can relate, like I used to think having a corporate job was safe. And my last full-time job, we had just gotten done laying people off because it was COVID. There was just a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I had this moment where I was like, I've been wanting to do my own thing and do consulting for so long. Now is the perfect time. And then what I thought about in the back of my head was dating back to every single corporate job I've had, I've laid people off. So it's like, I actually feel, and I believe in my core now, that being my own business owner is actually more safe than working for a company. And that took a lot of work, but I can say like I've 100% changed that belief. I feel like I'm in a lot more control doing my own thing. And so I don't think I could ever go back full time without having any sort of entrepreneurship thing on the side or something.
And you now have fallen in love with the exact thing that you get to help people with, which is the recruiting part of stuff. And then also getting to share about stepping into leadership, becoming a great boss, what it takes to like embody that. Can we dive into some of what most people get wrong when they're trying to grow and scale? Because I know you see a lot more things that people do wrong maybe than they're doing right, especially in the beginning. And as a lot of newer entrepreneurs are listening to this show, and the idea is to eventually scale or grow a team or to build something that's not just a one-man show, what are some of the things you've seen people make really big mistakes on?
There's a lot, and I think the mistakes change a little bit as you scale. For early stage entrepreneurs, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see them make is they think they're so busy, they have no time for anything, and they think hiring somebody is going to solve their problems. And the mistake in that is that what you actually feel is chaos, because most of the time you don't have any sort of systems or workflows or anything in place to run the business. And you think just adding a person to the mix is going to solve it, or you want to delegate creating those systems and workflows to a really entry-level person. And then you get really pissed off when they can't do it, or you think it's their fault. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes I see entrepreneurs make is they hear the advice, hire what you're not good at, or there's just a lot of advice out there about how hire before you're ready. But I think part of being ready is actually taking the time to understand and intentionally set up the workflows in your business. Even if you don't want to be running the operations in your business forever, it doesn't give you a free pass to not set it up. So I think that's one of the biggest, most fundamental mistakes, is that people, they think because they are the founder or the leader that they don't have to get in the weeds of the operational things. And I think you actually 100% have to, because if you don't know how your business runs, you can't train people, you can't actually performance manage them, you don't have any control.
We've been around the world of people saying, yes, hire the things that you don't feel like you're good at, and hire before you're ready, in the sense of maybe your business isn't making enough money to even pay somebody. That's the quickest way to go out of business, is to not have the means to continue with that support. I've done everything you've said a couple times before I learned my lesson. And she's 100% right in the fact that you have to really know what you're hiring for. And if you can't be bothered to take the time to set up some of these systems in your business, to think that you're going to be able to hire somebody for $10 an hour that knows more than you do about how you want things run, you're sadly mistaken. I'll tell you now, in hindsight, after I've set some things up, hiring someone who does understand that for an actual employee cost has been a huge benefit for me. But it's been a couple years in now. We know what we're doing versus we're just getting started trying to take some things off my plate. Because I do feel like at the end of the day, if you want to step into entrepreneurship and you can't seem to get yourself out of the chaos, that might be a sign that you're better served as an employee, where you just go check some boxes and there's some things that you're told exactly what to do in this time frame. The time management thing is one of those things I see a lot of people struggle with. Of they'll say things to me like, how do you get it all done? And I say, you just do. I don't know. And when you can set your timer on being focused and getting things like this gets done today, otherwise I get fired. If we don't put those same parameters on our own businesses, how can we expect anybody else to work for us like that? And so when I started taking my business now just as seriously as I took my hair business, I was like, oh yeah, I got shit done between 9 and 6 because I didn't do anything else besides what I was supposed to do. I didn't get up. I didn't plan things. I didn't cancel appointments. I didn't miss calls. Like, I got all of the things done. And that's why that business was thriving. And so it's funny that a lot of people want all this freedom and time, but that's how you can create the freedom as time, is doing those SOPs. And I'll never forget, you were at that recent Girlfriends in Business and someone specifically asked you that question. What if I don't want to, or if I don't have time to create those standard operating procedures?
Oh God, what did I say? Before I go into the second thing, I want to say something else about like systems and stuff, if that's all right. I think before running to jump and hire like a virtual assistant or something like that, there's so many people now who actually come in and set up your systems for you. So invest the time and money into hiring some sort of operational consultant. If you don't know how to set this up, it's probably $5,000 at max to pay someone to help walk you through what your operation could look like. It's much better for that first year if you're like, oh, I really need some help. Invest what you would have paid in a VA to hire somebody a little bit more skilled who can come in and set it up. And I think every business needs a project management tool. They need some sort of CRM where they're managing sales leads or something. They need an email marketing tool most of the time. And they need some sort of way of organizing all of the documents and things that you have. Those are the things that you really need in your business when I say systems. And so go hire people who can set that up for you and pay a little bit more to have somebody who knows what they're doing set that up for you. And then you'll have things set up so that you can then properly delegate to those lower level VAs or something like that. So just wanted to say that too, because
I will second that. And that's exactly what I did this past year was hire somebody exactly like that. And I met her through speaking at a mastermind last November, and she's completely changed the structure of everything. I now find pockets of time in my day, which I never had before because she has created all of these systems that we now get to work together on. And I've actually hired her to continue to work with me as far as like operations and stuff because she knew how to set it all up in a timely fashion. It wasn't like I was getting charged $40 an hour for someone to learn how to do things. And it is a game changer. Now, that took me about 4 years to find the right person. So if anybody needs a referral, I've got somebody for you. And that is a key piece because knowing what to invest in the beginning is such a big deal because sometimes we think we need another group program or a mastermind or go to another event. Really what you might need is to just get all of the chaos that's over here stuck in your emails where you can't find anything and get it dialed in so that you can start to create some ease and flow in your business. On to the second part. What were you going to say?
it's kind of related to what we've talked about, but there's a slight difference, and you've already hit on it, but it's not really getting clear on what you need in your business, like knowing what you need to hire for. And I think the biggest mistake that I see a lot of entrepreneurs make is they look to somebody they admire and they're like, oh, she has a chief of staff. I need to hire a chief of staff. Or, oh, they have a social media manager. I need to hire a social media manager. And you just think because somebody has a role in their business that you want to be like, that you also need that job in your business. And that usually doesn't work out because what you actually need to do is think through what you actually need help with in your business. And I think a lot of those first roles that people hire are often more support roles. And a support role job title, what somebody's actually doing can be so varied from company to company. I had somebody who is trying to really grow a podcast. She's a pretty big following. And she's like, so-and-so has this job. So I think that's what I need. And I'm like, what do you actually need them to do? And we broke it down. And what she actually needed was 2 separate jobs. She needed a podcast marketing person part-time and then also an EA part-time. So I think that's just the biggest thing I would say is really take the time to write down what you need them to do. Don't just look to what other people have on their teams and try to emulate that. Get really clear on what you need help with in your business. And it might end up being that same job, but it might not. And I think people just jump to, hey, can you send me an administrative assistant job description? I need to hire that. And I'm like, yes, but these job descriptions are very tailored to whatever this particular client needed. So it might not be helpful for you.
Those are 2 super helpful things. And I think a lot of people get really distracted by that shiny object of, okay, if I'm starting a business, these are the things I think I need. Whereas when you're just starting out, look at the iteration she talked about changing her podcast. If she had given that over to somebody else, she might not have been able to figure that out on her own. It's like when you're creating content and you're trying to really hone in on your secret sauce and what you want to be sharing and talking about, if you slice the pie out so thin that you're not even in creative control of a lot of stuff anymore, it can tend to get a little watered down. And I think in the early stages of your business, depending on what you're doing, you definitely want to have more of you coming through because people relate to the human side of businesses, especially at the smaller level in the early stages. It's another thing if you provide some sort of service that has no touch point with you, but most of us do. Most of us have a service that has a big touch point with us. And if we shop everything out to everybody else, it can get a little diluted, I've noticed. And there were many times where I thought, oh, I just need help with social media. I just need more help with this. And I've tried it all. And everything Jackie said has been true for me in the sense of that's not actually what I needed. I just needed to get a little bit more clear on a few different things. And so what seemed the easiest I went for, which was to hire something out.
The other thing I'll say too is right now we are living in a world where I think there's a lot of AI tools that can help with so many of the things that people have traditionally farmed out to people. And so explore what those could look like in your business. And I feel like as a business owner, it's overwhelming. You're like, I don't even have time to learn this or whatever. And that might be true, but that also might not be true. And there's also people out there who are experts in these things that you can pay to come in and review all of your stuff that you're working on and give you suggestions on AI tools you can use to automate. When you write down your tasks that you need somebody to do, I think the first thing you need to do is like, can I just stop doing this? Does it actually still need to happen in the business? Could I combine it with something else or could I automate it? And if after those 3 questions, it's still there, then maybe you need somebody to do it. But usually after reviewing those 3 questions on a task and being really honest about it, something can usually happen. So like myself, I have a multiple 6-figure business and I do not have an administrative assistant or any sort of assistant support. There's just no need for it because I have the system set up where I just don't need that job in my business. And I'm leveraging AI to do some of the entry level stuff. I share that not as, oh, I'm so great, but just as an example of like, just because you're hitting a certain revenue figure doesn't mean you need an administrative assistant.
That's good permission. Okay, so I know you've got a few pillars to help people become a great boss and grow a thriving team. I know a lot of people have big aspirations of growing an actual company that's more than just them. What do those look like? Can you walk us through those?
The most important thing that you can do is start to develop leadership and management skills. And they're very different things. If you're listening to this show, you probably are like invested in some of the leadership principles, like tenets of being a good leader in the world. And those are really important. But what's missed so often is learning actual management skills. Like leading people down a journey is a lot different than showing up as a leader in the world. And so getting really good at learning how to delegate, learning how to set expectations, learning how to have feedback conversations, those types of things are really important. And so that's by far the most important thing. The second is knowing the rules that you have to follow. So many business owners just start hiring people, sending out contracts, doing all of these things, and they don't actually understand the laws where they have employees, and they think that they'll figure it out later. And if you have a team of 5 employees, the time to figure it out is now, not later, because too often I have to go in and clean up messes that people have made because they didn't actually care to take the time to follow the rules and they wait too long. And what happens is they're like, oh, I'll figure it out when. Oh, I'll figure it out when. And when is always a lawsuit or some sort of big fine. You never have this moment where you're like, okay, I am now ready to make sure I know the laws. Like you don't ever feel that way. But when you get a lawsuit on your hands, you're like, fuck, I should have been figuring this out. And it's not that hard. You just have to invest time into it. And then the third piece is learning how to forecast the jobs you need to hire and hire well. And I say that last because that's usually the thing people focus on the most. And if you don't have the 2 other things, especially the first, you'll find yourself constantly backfilling these jobs because you are not creating the environment that people want to work in. And so you're going to get really good at hiring because you're going to be doing a lot of it if you haven't figured out the other things. All of those things together need to be worked on.
I'm having so many flashbacks of people over the many years I was a hairdresser in a variety of salons leave thinking that they could go off and create something better. And a lot of it wasn't like, oh, I can do it better than this. It was like, okay, something shifted and they wanted to go open their own space. So you go from being a behind the chair service provider in an environment that was curated for you. Hopefully you had good leadership. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you had no examples of what it looked like to lead a salon type of a business. And you go off and you open your own space thinking everyone that works for you is just going to know what to do. And I saw time and time again, and I'm sure you've worked with a variety of different businesses similar to like, say, a salon, where that is just not the case. If you go from being just a one-on-one service provider with your clients to then now being a boss and a leader to other people who are your peers slash employees slash commission, however you operate your business, it's a completely different situational setup. You are no longer one of them. You are now the boss. You are now the leader. And a lot of people, I think, miss that investment of time of learning how to be a great leader and forgetting to learn how to manage people, because I've seen bad management before where it's like the way the teacher system is broken, where the teachers are meant to teach the kids all the same way when they need to be managed differently. Not a shout out to all teachers. I think some of you are doing an amazing job. My son just happened to not go to school wherever you teach. I think those management skills should be taught in early stage childhood. Like, we should learn how to be able to manage our emotions, manage people, manage expectations, and manage potential like business you may create, because that, I think, to me is the key piece. People leave people. They don't necessarily leave their job. They leave whoever they're working for, or the management style of the way someone's like overseeing them. So let's just like shoot for the moon here. Someone decides to go off on their own. These are the things they need to invest their focus on. Are there some places that you send people to go hone in on skill number one?
Yeah. I also want to share how to be a boss isn't taught anywhere. I've been in corporate America for a long time and I never had a manager course. I never even got a course on how to recruit, right? So if you are somebody who's going off and running off on your own, I don't want you to be like, oh, I'm screwed because I never worked in a corporate environment. They're not getting it either. So that's totally fine. But there's a couple books I really love. One is called The Making of a Manager, and it's Julie, I cannot think of her last name, but she was hired as a intern at Facebook and ended up growing into a VP of product role. And it's literally her experience of learning how to be a boss. So The Making of a Manager.
Okay.
There's also a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. She has a great TED Talk. So if you'd want to skip the book and just go listen to the TED Talk, it's just like how giving real, honest feedback is actually kind. Go watch the TED Talk because it's going to help you learn how to have hard conversations with every relationship you have, because like an employee and boss relationship is just another relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like learning how to have those conversations in life is helpful. And then I have an amazing friend. Her Instagram following is Manager Method, and she has so many great videos on how to be a good boss. So those are some really great resources for that. I talk about these concepts a lot on my podcast and things that I'm learning, but I don't actually have trainings because I have so many people who do such a better job to share with. But I would say Ashley Hurd is definitely one of my favorites to go follow.
Awesome. Okay. Ashley and Manager Method, Heard, Hurd.
Herd.
H-E-R.
Her handle's Manager Method. We met on TikTok of all places, which is amazing.
Hey, if you're not putting yourself out there, you can't meet online besties. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. If you guys want to dive deeper into this, I know I wanted to have this conversation on the podcast because I know so many people are coming into the programs or masterminds, or I meet them at like events like Girlfriends in Business or Chris's Roundtable or a variety of other networking events that are going on. And the concept of being an early stage entrepreneur, but yet not working on these skills to potentially become a boss. And I think it's something that we can embody even before you hire your first employee or your first contract person, like stepping into that energy of what does it take? And is this something I really want to do? When I opened my first salon, I realized I didn't love managing people. Now, it could have been one of two things. One, I didn't like not feeling like one of them. Two, it could have been I didn't know how to manage people at a level that would have made more sense, like reading these books, following this woman, learning the skills or the things that somewhat intimidate you. It might not be because you don't like it. It might just be because you don't know how to do it. And so I know there's a lot of that quote unquote imposter syndrome, but really to me, that just means you're a beginner and you haven't put any reps in yet. And I think if I would have stuck with it a little bit longer, I did learn to deal with everyone a little bit differently because everybody is different. And in a creative world, it's even more apparent. And I think when you just come from a place of compassion, even with yourself and with the people you're working with and for, or who are working for you, it's a great learning experience. And always admitting like, hey, I'm not really sure how to do this yet. Bear with me while I figure it out. People want to know that it's not this I'm telling you what to do type of era. I think staying close to people like Jackie who are here to help you figure it out is key. And listening to podcasts like that, I want to be the world's greatest boss. So that's a great title. I love that.
Thank you. It is. You're always going to be learning and developing these skills. And so if you just commit to being a lifelong learner, you get better and better. I'm always learning myself and I just want to learn and I want to try new things. If you are struggling with stepping into that boss role, then do some like reflection. Why? Is it because it's lonely? Is it because I want to be liked? There's a lot of things. Or to your point, do you just not know what to do? You can figure it out and you just have to test and try and keep trying, even if you mess up, because you're going to mess up.
Totally. And so your company, you guys provide what? HR and recruiting for small businesses. If this is something that someone's listening to and they're like, hey, I think I need some help, what is it that they can come to you guys for?
Thank you for that. So my business is People Principles, and we are predominantly a recruiting firm for startups and early stage companies. We also have a HR service specifically for small businesses, listeners of the show, because they just need somebody to ask these questions to, or they don't know what they don't know. And so we do have a HR, it's called On Demand service, where you get unlimited access to me and my business partner via Slack and email to ask questions when they come up and get access to templates and tools and just have somebody to ask these questions to. And so they can check it out over at peopleprinciples.co.
Awesome. So cool. What a great resource. Making it accessible for us early stage entrepreneurs to figure it out and get it done right the first time. Like she said, don't wait for that invitation from being sued to remind you to do things right. I think we sometimes forget that there's rules over here in the entrepreneurship world too. So thank you for reminding us that, because nobody really wants to get in trouble. Let's be honest. That's not fun. Jackie, you're such a pleasure. I love you so much. It's always good to see you. You guys, if you love this episode and you got some takeaways, share with us on social. Tag us, tag this episode. You probably know somebody who could be reminded of these things too if you're a business owner. So share this episode. It's always a good sign that you're thinking of somebody. I always love sharing podcast episodes with people that I'm like, hey, this really landed for me and it made me think of you. So it's a great way to say hi to somebody or create new business besties online. Jackie, again, you guys go follow her at People Principles on Instagram, and also check out the podcast, World's Greatest Boss. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of Unscripted.